Not about a billionaire. Not about a crypto genius. Not about someone who got lucky. This is about a normal guy. Let's call him Mark. Mark did everything the system told him to do. He worked for over 3 decades in a stable, respectable job. He showed up early. He stayed late. He said no to impulse spending. He maxed out his retirement accounts. He paid off his house. He avoided lifestyle inflation. On paper, Mark was a financial success story. By his early 60s, he had just over $1.3 million invested, a paid-off homemade pension, and Social Security that covered most essentials. Friends told him he'd won the game. And for the first few months, it felt that way. He slept in for the first time in decades. He watched movies in the middle of the day. He took trips he'd been postponing for years. He finally felt like life had slowed down. But then something strange happened. The excitement faded. The trips stopped feeling special. The days started blending together. He stopped waking up with urgency. He stopped being needed. By the end of the first year, his calendar was empty. By the second year, his energy was gone. By the third year, his doctor noticed worrying cognitive decline. Mark didn't run out of money. He ran out of purpose. And here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear. Mark is not an exception. He's closer to the average outcome. And that should terrify anyone whose entire financial plan ends with the word retirement. The story we've been sold about retirement is very new. For most of human history, retirement didn't exist. People didn't work until 65 and then relax for decades. They contributed until they physically couldn't anymore. And when they stopped contributing, life usually didn't last much longer. The idea of spending 20 to 30 years in permanent leisure is a modern invention, barely a few generations old. From an evolutionary perspective, it's nothing. Your brain didn't evolve for endless free time. Your nervous system didn't evolve for constant comfort. Your psychology didn't evolve to feel fulfilled without responsibility. Humans evolved to solve problems, contribute to a group, be useful, be needed. When you remove all of that overnight, something breaks. And we don't just have philosophy here. We have data. What the data actually says about retirement. Multiple long-term studies across different countries have found the same unsettling pattern. When people stop working entirely, health declines faster. Earlier retirement is consistently associated with higher mortality, risk increased, depression faster, cognitive decline worse, physical health. In several studies, people who retired earlier had significantly higher death rates than those who continued working longer, even after adjusting for health and income. This is the part people always miss. It's not just aging. It's the sudden removal of structure, challenge, and purpose. Your brain is an organ. Like a muscle, it weakens when it's no longer used. And for most adults, work is the primary source of mental challenge, social interaction, daily structure, identity. Remove that without replacing it, and decline accelerates. But I know retired people who are happy. You probably do. Most of us do. But look closer. The retirees who thrive are rarely the ones who stop doing things. They stopped working for money, but they didn't stop working. They volunteer, teach, mentor, build projects, care for family, create businesses, stay socially engaged. In other words, they didn't retire in the traditional sense. They transitioned. This is where most financial advice completely fails. The most important distinction in personal finance. There is a massive difference between retirement and financial independence. They're not the same thing. Retirement is about stopping. Financial independence is about choosing. Retirement says, I don't have to do anything anymore. Financial independence says, I only do things I choose. Same money, completely different outcome. And confusing these two ideas might be one of the biggest planning mistakes people make. Why work is more important than you think. Work gives you far more than a paycheck. Even work you don't love provides 5 critical things most people never consciously notice until they're gone. 1. Structure. Work organizes time. It tells you, When to wake up what today is for how to sequence effort. Without structure, days blur together. Sleep schedules drift. Physical activity declines. Motivation evaporates. Unlimited freedom sounds great until every day feels the same. 2. Identity. For better or worse, humans define themselves by contribution. When someone asks, "What do you do?" they're really asking, "How do you fit in the world?" When that answer disappears overnight, people feel lost. This is why so many retirees still introduce themselves by what they used to do years later. 3. Social connection. For most adults, work is the main source of daily human interaction. Colleagues, clients, teams. Retirement often eliminates this instantly. And social isolation is not harmless. It's associated with higher mortality, risk depression, cognitive decline, especially among men who are less likely to build social networks outside of work. For purpose, humans need to feel useful, not entertained, not distracted, useful. When contribution disappears, an existential emptiness takes its place. This is why people with a clear sense of purpose live longer and healthier lives, regardless of income. 5. Challenge. The brain needs difficulty to stay sharp. Problem solving, learning curves, deadlines, responsibility. Work quietly provides all of this. When it's removed, cognitive demand collapses unless you intentionally replace it. Why? "I'll figure out later" is a trap. Many people assume they'll discover purpose after they retire. The data says this almost never works. Purpose is not something you magically stumble into after decades of structure disappear. It has to be built ahead of time. The people who struggle most are those whose entire identity, social life, and challenge system was tied to their job. When that job ends, everything ends. A better way to think about your financial goal. Instead of planning for retirement, plan for financial independence plus purpose. These are two separate problems. Financial independence equals math. This part is straightforward. Know your annual expenses, save, aggressively invest, consistently let compound growth work. This is what most finance content focuses on. Purpose equals design. This part is almost completely ignored. Purpose requires skills, relationships, meaningful projects, ongoing challenge. And it cannot be rushed. Practical steps you should start now. This is an abstract philosophy. These are concrete actions. 1. Build an identity outside your job. Be known for something other than your profession. Teach something. Create something. Help somewhere. You need an answer to "what do you do?" that doesn't depend on a paycheck. 2. Invest in non-work relationships. If all your friendships are work-based, you are one retirement party away from isolation. Build community now. 3. Train your brain like you train your body. Learn difficult things on purpose. Instruments, languages, strategy, games, technical skills. Your future cognitive health depends on it. 4. Define your reason to wake up. If money were irrelevant, what would you spend your time on? If you can't answer that, your plan is incomplete. The reframe that changes everything. The goal is not to reach a point where you do nothing. The goal is to reach a point where you only do what matters to you. That's the difference between freedom as emptiness, freedom as intention. One leads to decline. The other leads to vitality. The dirty secret nobody talks about. The retirement industry sells a finish line. But humans aren't designed for finish lines. We're designed for continuation. When contribution stops, decline starts. Not because people are weak, but because biology doesn't care about your investment account. Final thought. The most dangerous financial plan is one that ends with, "and then I stop." Money doesn't keep you alive. Purpose does. Don't aim to retire from life. Aim to become financially independent enough to finally live it on your own terms. Don't be the person who saved perfectly and then faded. Be the person who never stopped contributing.